Good morning. We're getting some extra chairs, but I still see some empty chairs up here, so get cozy. So I want to thank you for coming this morning on a Friday morning and being interested in this topic. Today, this meeting's going to represent, by the way, my name is Peggy Flynn, and I am the city manager of the city of Petaluma. This meeting this morning represents a kickoff of the development of a public process to discuss the future of the Fairgrounds property. Our goal today is to come up with a draft approach that each subcommittee, we have two subcommittees of the Fair Board, the Fairgrounds Board, and the City Council here this morning. And they can take this plan back to their respective boards for input and approval. And while no decisions will be made today, we hope that the result of the work that we did yesterday, which we will have up on our website, you'll see all the notes from yesterday up on our website. So the work we do today will result in a mutually agreed upon, robust public engagement process that has a kickoff date and an end date so we can keep this effort moving forward. As you'll hear today, our commitment throughout this process is to be transparent and forthcoming with history and background information that the public hasn't been privy to, and we'll be ground truthing assumptions through some analysis and debunk some myths to allow us to all work from the same baseline playbook. Most importantly, over the next 4 months, we'll be creating a forum that allows our community to really get to know and appreciate this incredible asset and express collective goals and desires for the future of our fairgrounds. With that, I'd like to have each of our subcommittee members introduce themselves, and then we'll kick off with the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Brian Sobel. I'm joining the Fair Board. I'm not actually a Fair Board member, but because of the Baggy-Keene law and the Brown Act, there were 3 representatives available from the City Council and just 2 from the Fair Board, so I was added to the Fair Board. I was a 9-year member of the Fair Board and a 9-year member of the City Council, so I've got a foot kind of in both camps. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Mike Healy on the Petaluma City Council, and I've been here for 19 years.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Parks. I am on the Sonoma Marin Fair Board of Directors and one of the committee members, the Goals and Long Range Planning Committee members for this task. And I am really appreciative of the number of faces that are out there. I'm appreciative of the green and white uniforms that I see, and the blue and gold as well. Thank you very much for coming.
Good morning. I'm Kevin McDonald, Petaluma City Council. 35 years in Petaluma, kind of new, and 1 year on City Council, kind of new there too.
Good morning. My name is Dominic Grossi. I'm also on the Fair Board. I've been on the board for about 10 years now, and I'm excited a lot, like what Mike just said, to see such a great turnout to get this process started. We're really excited about it. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dave King. I'm a member of the Petaluma City Council. I was elected in 2014, so I'm looking forward to us getting really started on this process this morning. So thanks for being here.
Good morning. Great to see everyone. I'm Dr. Allison Caney. I am the CEO of the Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds, and I represent the equivalent of Peggy on the staff side of the District Agricultural Association. Good morning.
So with that, I would like to introduce Barry Long, the President and CEO of Urban Design Associates, who will help us facilitate the conversation today and take us through a presentation. And if the subcommittees are amenable, would like to do the presentation, then take public comment. If you're interested in doing public comment, just fill out a little orange card here and give it to our city clerk. And then we'd come back to the committees for feedback. Does that work for everybody? Great. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Peggy, and good morning. Good morning to the subcommittee members and to the audience. What a great turnout on a Friday morning. For what we understand and appreciate is a very important subject, which is the Fairgrounds property and the future use of that property. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a short presentation. The subcommittee members saw this presentation yesterday. We met with them separately. We took their feedback. We edited a few things. And this presentation is about the process that we're going to go through to solicit community input so that we can all be better educated before decisions have to be made. And there are going to be a lot of opportunities, as you'll see today, for community input going forward. So again, I'm Barry Long. I'm a managing principal with UDA. We are planners. We specialize in facilitating these kind of processes. And we look forward to working with the city and the Fairgrounds Board and the community. So the meetings this week had a limited purpose, and that was to determine the best way to engage stakeholders and gather input about how the community envisions the future of the city-owned Fairgrounds property. So this is going to be an open participatory process, not just a negotiation between council and the Fairgrounds Board. So just as an overview, as proposed, there are 3 steps in this process. The first is understanding the history and context, plus listening to stakeholders in the community. Understanding the history and context here is very important because the Fairgrounds has a long history, but we also want to make sure for everybody that we frame the parameters of the discussion properly. There are, in that history, a lot of existing conditions that we all need to understand. There are existing leaseholders on the site, many of them. The Fairgrounds is utilized 365 days a year for a lot of different things. And we don't need to understand that context so that we can frame things properly going forward. The second part of the process is going to be exploring ideas and doing a preference survey. And then the third part is reporting findings to the Fairgrounds Board and Council. So we're going to be reporting back findings. The end part of the process is not picking a master plan. This isn't really a master planning process. We're reporting back findings, and we'll explain in what level of detail that is in just a minute. So some principles that are going to guide this process. The process will be transparent and inclusive, as it is today. Community engagement will take the form of listening, not recommending or deciding. We're not making decisions for you or making recommendations on a particular outcome. Both positive and negative comments will be part of the final report. We hope there are a lot more positive comments than negative, but we're realists. So we are transparent. We report back everything that we hear. In contrast to previous studies, the process will focus on potential uses versus a master plan. This is a restart to the discussion, and the City and Fairgrounds Board will work in collaboration to find common ground and refine next steps. That's the purpose of having these subcommittees set up so that they can meet together and work directly together. So a timeline, step 1, this understanding the history and context, plus listening to stakeholders in the community. We anticipate that that's going to take about 2.5 months, and that process will start in March. So we're not actually starting the information gathering today, although we do want to hear from you. We are starting the process of talking about how we're going to talk about this. That's the purpose of today's meeting. The second part, exploring ideas and conducting a preference survey, the latter part of May and June. The nice thing about this is you can see it overlaps with the fair dates this year, which are June 24th through 28th, so we actually will have an opportunity to participate in the fair. And then the final part of this initial process will be preparing a summary and reporting the findings to both the Fairgrounds Board and Council in July. So the process is not designed without an end date or to be endless. We want to have a fixed date. because the termination of the leases or the end date of the leases have a fixed date. The sooner that we get to presenting findings, the sooner the discussion can move forward about the future. So just to give you a little bit of a sense about this listening step, how do we plan for evolution? Our answer is we ask the community. We're here to listen. Our role is not to tell you or to dictate, it's to listen to you about what you'd like to see the future be. And this is a discovery process. So what is a discovery process? Some of the key principles: it's community-driven, based on stakeholder and community involvement, and transparent. So the City of Petaluma and the Fairgrounds Board are two of the key entities here, and the reason that we have those circles larger and highlighted because the City of Petaluma is the property owner, and the Fairgrounds Board maintains the master lease, and then there's other subleases under that, but they maintain the master lease. But we will have stakeholders and residents having, and community members having direct input into the discovery process. And the process is to be transparent, and is based on stakeholder and community involvement, as we said. I'm not going to go through the entire list of stakeholders. We worked with the subcommittees yesterday. Both groups added to this list. You can see we still have room for more. There will be a whole variety of individual stakeholder meetings. So if there's ones that you see on this list that we missed, and you come up for public comment, please feel free to add. But one of the things we ask in all of our meetings at the end is, who else should we be talking to? So we want this process to be as inclusive as possible. So how will we do this listening approach? One thing we do, we will do, is larger community meetings like this for the community, where we'll frame the discussion and say that this is your opportunity to think about the future. And then we'll go through, in this first step, talking about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as it relates to the fairgrounds. And the area to be focused on is the fairgrounds property itself, which is about 55 acres, the area that's outlined here in red. We also have discussed possibly doing open houses to get questions answered. In these large community meetings, we like to do great facilitated breakout groups with about 12 to 15 people to make sure everybody has a voice, and then have everyone report back. Each of the groups report back. That's our typical format. These pictures are from Paradise. We ran their community recovery process that started at this time last year up in Paradise after the fires. We actually had up to 1,000 residents come out to meetings. City Council had their first meeting. Their chambers are about this size after the fires, and they realized they had a serious problem with seating. So we found a 1,500-seat church, which actually, fortunately, didn't burn in the fire, that we used for the community engagement process in their gymnasium. So it's good to get a sense that there's broad community interest already in this, so that we can begin to talk about scale of venues. We hope to do the community engagement process on the fairgrounds property. I don't know if what the capacity of Herzog Hall is, but we'll figure that out with Allison. Also, to allow folks that don't have the opportunity or time to participate in public meetings, we'll do online surveys, and we use SurveyMonkey. It gives us an opportunity to ask a lot of different questions and get more broad feedback. So the same types of things we'll be talking about in the community engagement sessions we'll also do as online surveys. And we'll do those as bilingual online surveys to make sure that we don't exclude non-English speaking members of the community. And these surveys will be, I think, conceptually we talked about hosted through both the city's fairgrounds webpage and the Fairgrounds Board's website. So both, it'll go out through both entities, and we'll be collecting information both ways. That's also, we should say, a good way to stay informed about the process. And as Peggy said, information which had been developed before, which is now going to be released publicly, not by us. And I don't want to imply that we worked privately on the fairgrounds. We're new to this this week. But by other consultants, I think it's going to be posted for your review. That's not the go-forward plan. It's history, and it's also at this point somewhat, we would say, stale. It needs to be revisited anyway. We'll also do bilingual paper surveys at events. We talk about doing this out actually at the fair and at the fairgrounds and maybe other places. One-on-one interviews, small group meetings with stakeholders, and then, as we showed, large group meetings with community feedback, and anything else we can think of that makes sense. So the exploring step gets down to the uses. For those that aren't familiar, although it looks like many in the room probably are, there are many tenants and uses at the fairgrounds today. It is a 365-day-a-year property. So there's current fairgrounds tenants and users, which are listed on the left of this image. So a lot of these are subleases. But then for the actual fair itself, which is just one event that happens at the fairgrounds, we have the covered uses and the outdoor uses. And then we've just listed potential uses which have been mentioned in the past, which include all the current uses, which are on the left, plus some other things like housing and hospitality. Also important, emergency staging and sheltering area. As we know, in past years for the fire, it became a critical facility for that on an emergency and unplanned basis. So there's a lot of things to talk about. And these are just a map showing some of the subleases. So the public engagement and preference survey, how this will work is the input that we get from all of you and from council and the Fairgrounds Board and the stakeholders about strengths and weaknesses will go into developing a series of uses. Like we just made up hypothetical things, but let's just say a new event center space. Herzog Hall is wonderful. Maybe we have an opportunity to do something larger and contemporary. That'll be outlined as a potential opportunity. And then in a community meeting and in online surveys, we'll ask your preference. Thumbs up or thumbs down, is this a good idea? And if you want to write us a note, we provide opportunities to do that too with sticky notes. We'll do illustrations if there's something that needs to be drawn that to help folks understand, or use photographs, whatever communication tools make sense. So in a public meeting format, we'll have facilitators explain these things, and then you get to indicate preferences. Then we go back to our office and we summarize all this formally, and this becomes part of the findings that we report back to the subcommittees. So this is ways we document and take community preference. This hasn't happened in the past, so we don't have this database of information for the decision makers, but we will be collecting it through this process. At the same time, that's great, but we also need to do some market analysis and some financial modeling. So let's just take something like the Civic Center as an example. We need to understand if that's something that would be revenue positive or revenue neutral or need subsidy. And we need to do some financial modeling to understand how that fits into the financial model. The fair is not the financial model today. The fairgrounds is the financial model, and the fair is just one piece of that. There's actually a fairly complicated financial model the Fairgrounds Board educated us on yesterday as to how this whole thing works. And so we have to understand the implications of what's proposed. We can't just have great ideas without understanding the financial implications. That'll be part of the process. And we need to do additional assessments. Environmental assessments, legal, infrastructure, historical. These assessments will be going on in parallel with this process because those are other findings that the decision makers need. So something like the grandstands would just be one example, but it's throughout the fairgrounds we need this information. Okay, and then finally, reporting out. So with the input of the city and the Fairgrounds Board, the community engagement piece, which we're talking about, the market study and financial analysis and additional assessments, that's all going to get rolled up into the findings, which will be reported back. You didn't see a master plan here. We will probably need to do some fit testing to see what fits in the suitcase, because usually we end up with more stuff than fits, and that will be part of the process, but it's not the central focus, and it's not very well figured out how that piece is going to come in. In the past, what's been done, though, were master plans, but that's not what this process is really focused on. It's focused on trying to establish the preferred uses and then work out a financial model that works for everybody. So that discovery process is going to be summarized and presented to the Fairgrounds Board and Council for consideration. But before we even get there, we need to talk about next steps, because this is where we are today. So the city and the Fairgrounds staff with UDA will synthesize this approach into a robust engagement process, basically what we've just described, for each subcommittee to take back to their respective boards. So these subcommittees have an obligation already to go back to their boards, explain the process, what you heard about today, come back to the city manager and, explain what their feedback is, and then we'll finalize this process to get started next month. So that's the immediate next step. We're not ready to launch tomorrow. And I think as an overview, that's it. We said we'd do public comment next. I would ask if anybody on the subcommittees right now has any immediate things that I missed or you would like to say before we receive public comment.
Any questions from the subcommittee members? No.
Just the one. Will this presentation be posted on our?
Yes.
Yeah, so it will be public and all the fine print will be bigger for people.
Yeah,
Correct.
Sorry about that, yeah. So it'll be available on the webpage, on the
cityofpetaluma.org/fairgrounds.
Right. And on the Fair Board's webpage when we get that up and running. We're going to try to run the same information parallel in both places. And that'll probably be Monday at least, you think?
Or today.
Or today. Yes, so you can...
Sorry, Ingrid.
No pressure, Ingrid.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, Barry. If the subcommittee doesn't have any questions, I'd like to go to public comment. We have some speakers. Just out of respect for all the different perspectives here in the room, I'd ask that we refrain from clapping or cheering. Typically, we don't do that in City Council, during City Council meetings, just out of respect for different perspectives. We have about 10 speakers. We're going to give everybody 3 minutes. If you don't need to speak for the entire 3 minutes, that'll give more time for others to talk. And the first speaker is Chris Rebelo.
Don't know how I got to the top of the heap, but here I am. My name's Chris Rebelo. I chair the city's Senior Advisory Committee, and I'm just here asking all of you during this process to include age-friendly in your deliberations and what ultimately happens. So what's age-friendly? Age-friendly communities are good places for people to both grow up and grow old in, so it's for all generations. The city of Petaluma has applied to join the AARP network of age-friendly communities. There are currently 6 states and 440 communities around the country that are involved in this. There are 8 domains that are included in age-friendly. Among them, housing, transportation, outside spaces, community and civic engagement. I think all of those domains should come into play or will probably be discussed during this process. Petaluma decides how we want to be age-friendly. It is not one size fits all. And like I said, I think this project has lots of possibilities. If you want more information, AARP, Age Friendly, there's lots of information there. There's a big focus on intergenerational activities in Age Friendly because research shows that it's not a great thing to isolate the generations, that they do a lot better when they are connected. So I know it's too early for ideas, but I just want to say there are communities that have taken really bold actions. There are communities that have built affordable housing that is designed for both older adults and young families with kids. It's a really great mix. There are playgrounds that are multi-generational programs that have things for little kids to play with, things for older adults to use for exercise, and actually equipment where they can play together. So just a few ideas. Once again, it's time to be bold and to perhaps seek some new community partnerships to make this happen. Whatever happens going forward with the Fairgrounds is going to need public support. There are a lot of older adults in Petaluma. We have a growing older adult population. I would say making things age-friendly could help with approval because these are the people that care and vote and are able to show up. And also, once we get into the AARP network, it's going to be easier for the city to apply for grants. There is funding out there for age-friendly projects from AARP and elsewhere, so let's go for it.
Thank you, Chris. Next, I have Olivia Poncha.
Good morning. My name is Olivia Poncha, and this is Andy Urdelli, Ben Forney, and Audrey Arntz, and we are here representing the Petaluma FFA. FFA is a national youth organization rooted in agriculture. Our members are enrolled in agriculture classes at Petaluma High School, and our chapter is one of 10 in our local vicinity that make up the Sonoma section. Part of our education model includes students learning real-world agriculture skills through supervised agriculture experience projects. For many, this includes raising and exhibiting livestock at our local fairs. Our members also complete in projects in the areas of horticulture and agriculture mechanics that are displayed at these same fairs. To us, the fair is an integral part of our education. As the City Council and Fair Board begin the planning process for the future of the Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds, it is vitally important that as many stakeholders as possible be a part of this conversation. Historically, this would mean FFA members and advisors, 4-H leaders, and UC Extension Office, local agribusiness like American Ag Credit, as well as community-based groups or organizations who use facilities when the fair is not happening. These community groups include Kiwanis, Rotary, and the various schools housed on the fairgrounds.
We urge the council to reach out to these groups for insight into the heritage of the fair. The importance of it holds as an education opportunity for the public to see agriculture on display as well as the life lessons students learn through their projects. Community groups would offer insight into how the fairgrounds can be used to better serve the areas beyond the city of Petaluma that are covered by the 4th District Agricultural Association. Our agriculture teachers are Jake Dunn and Kim Arntz, are active members of the California Agricultural Teachers Association and would gladly serve as liaisons to the teachers within our section, which is served by the 4th District Agricultural Association.
Hello, members and members of the board and council. My name is Ben Forney. Throughout my life, the Petaluma Fairgrounds has served an important part in making me the person I am as I stand in front of you today. As a young child, I attended the small daycare center which operated from the community building of the fairgrounds. Some years later, as an elementary school student, I would visit the fairgrounds along with hundreds of others of my peers to take part in the agricultural education event known as Ag Days. I would learn how to swim by taking swimming lessons at the public pool located on the city's property. From then, I began showing my poultry and swine livestock projects in addition to my woodworking creations at the Sonoma Marin Fair. Several years ago, when flames ravaged parts of our community, in October 2017, I was among the evacuated who sought refuge at the fairgrounds, among hundreds of others as smoke lingered in the air. While all these experiences are unique in their own way, they collectively served a part in making me the kind, humble, and community-oriented person I am today. While my story may be unique, it certainly does not stand alone. The Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds and facilities which compose it serve an important role in our community as a whole, as its existence has impacted each and every person who calls this city home. This is why I am speaking in front of you today. For if we cannot preserve this important component of our community, who knows how or even with this necessary role will be filled. The discussion surrounding this issue incorporates many conversations, all contemplated and composed by those with the best interest of our community in mind. Today, affordable housing advocates, city leaders, agriculturists, and community members representing these conversations have assembled to discuss the future of this property. Together, the many plans they set forth by these individuals and organizations and movements they represent share one vision: to make our community the best it can be. This property has the ability to fill many needs, but regardless of what is decided upon, not everyone will be entirely satisfied. It is necessary, however, that all community stakeholders feel that their voice is properly heard. In order to accomplish this ambition, while maintaining true to the traditions of our city and the needs of its citizens, I urge for a plan that considers the many needs of our community, partially fulfilling the ideas of all who have come here today. I hope this idea represents the beginning of a new conversation, not how we can individually realize our own priorities, but collectively work together to incorporate them all. Thank you.
Hello, council and board members and those in the audience. My name is Audrey Arntz. From a young age, the Petaluma Fairgrounds has been impactful in shaping me into the person I am today. As a toddler, I would tag along behind my mom as she supervised the Petaluma FFA every June during the fair. It has been at the fair where I have made some of my most important friendships and warmest memories. As I grew older and began exhibiting dairy cattle at the fair, I developed a love for the agriculture industry and community. Outside of the barns, the fairgrounds is also home to the Raceway, which has brought together members of the community for years now. However, as the community discusses the value of the fairgrounds, it is crucial to take into account more than just the past. The fairgrounds has hosted the annual Ag Days for years now, whose purpose is to benefit those outside of the agriculture community. Educating the public and youth about agriculture is necessary for a sustainable future, and what better place to accomplish this than the Petaluma Fairgrounds? Furthermore, as we all know, our county has been the victim of several devastating fires within these past few years. In these times of turmoil, the fairgrounds has been extremely successful in assisting countless community members. Evacuated families with pets or livestock look to the fairgrounds for safety and security. If the fairgrounds is developed for housing or retail purposes, where will such people go when another fire threatens to destroy their homes? Though my experience on the fairgrounds may not be the same as others, it is generally acknowledged that there is value in preserving it. Its diversions, educational aspects, and its suitability in times of disaster make it impactful in the lives of various community members from all over Sonoma County, not just the individual. While determining the future of this piece of land, I think it is essential that we consider what's best for our community as a whole. Rather than evaluate how many houses can fit on the property and who would be able to afford them, or what stores would be profitable and who would shop there, we should focus on the less materialistic aspects of it. The fairgrounds can be and have been used in a way that benefits people of all ages, gender, sex, race, and ethnicity. Why would we trade that in? Not everyone will be happy with whatever idea is decided upon, but standing in front of you today, I urge you to consider more than the potential benefits to one single group of people. I urge you to think of children throughout the community and of animals and fellow community members who have lost or might lose their homes in a disastrous fire. It is my sincerest hope that as a community we will decide on the option that benefits as many people as possible and will have a lasting impact in the lives of many. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice Cater-Thompson. She's right here. Good timing.
That was perfect timing, but going in back of these young, eloquent speakers is difficult. I, of course, was raised in Petaluma. I was raised on a farm. So this property actually is really important for many of us. When I was on the city council, we were talking about what are we going to do with the fairgrounds. So this is not a new issue. I really like the idea of incorporating all the different needs because it's an important piece of property. And I don't think we want to look at it as the financial value as much as a community value or combine both of them. A few things that I would like to know is the toxicity on the site. I know it's something maybe we don't want to talk about, but there is the cars, the races that have been there for a long time, and laws have changed. And I think it's really important that we at least have an understanding of that. And when you were talking about 55 acres, does that include the school site also, which is the school has a site there for gas and the city uses that also. And so that's what I'd really like to make sure is what the toxicity level is and how we're going to remediate that. I'm really looking forward to a mixed use. Mr. Forney talked about the pool. I mean, an Olympic-sized pool is really a value. So this property has so much community value, and I guess I'm just really happy to see how many people are here, people that we don't always engage with. I think this is a great start, and I'm looking forward to participating in this. I do want to say that I have a radio show, 3 of us, Jason Davies, Cindy Thomas, and I, and it's KPCA. It's called Inside Petaluma, and every Friday from 11 to noon. It's 103.3 FM, and I'll be leaving a little early today because of that, and we'll be talking about this and hopefully having some of you on as guests. Brian, you've been on, Mike's been on, Dave, and Kevin. Because I think it's important that the community know what's going on so we understand what you're thinking. But as decision makers, it's really important that we look at 2020 and not back in 1963 thinking, and that's the direction I think that this process is going. Any other comments? Nope. It is important for emergency services, Allison, because I was there during that time, and it really is important. And we need to know how that is going to be also incorporated as a county, not just as a city. It's a bigger issue than just what Petaluma can do. And I think that is really important. And just as long as we look at this as a true mixed use and not look at it in a vacuum, thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Amber, I know I'm going to... Thank you. Sobel Sai.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here at the right time of day, not in the middle of the night. Last time I saw a lot of you. I am here as a representation of a complex stakeholder. I live within walking distance of the fairgrounds. I'm a parent of a student at the school there. I work with the organization in Petaluma called North Bay Organizing Project as co-chair of their Petaluma chapter. And we work on housing in Petaluma, and we focus on affordable housing. So when I come here today, I have a lot that I bring to the table. I participate in the fair. I'm a gold prize winner in the knitting category. My son participates. He submits boats every year. That's his fixation. And he goes to school there. But I'm really here today to talk about the affordable housing piece because I'm worried that we're not going to hear about it unless someone speaks up. And my interest in that piece is based on an understanding of what tends to go on in Petaluma when development opportunities present themselves. And we know and we see that the majority of development projects around housing here are in the luxury home market. And I'm talking about housing that is for the minority of Petaluma. And so when we think about this parcel of land, I want to be a part of the process that identifies the need of the majority of people in Petaluma to have opportunities to live here without spending an unreasonable amount of their income on their housing. And so whether or not housing becomes a part of this project, I think it's very clear that the discussion around housing has to be on the affordability of it. And it can't be a small piece of the housing that we provide. It has to be the majority. And I want to point out that we have Assembly Bill 1486 that was passed in October, which prioritizes public land for public good. It means that when we have surplus land, it has to be prioritized for affordable housing. And as a stakeholder in this process, I urge you to consider how you're reaching your community of low-income stakeholders. They won't be showing up at your public meetings that you're holding. And I want to ask, how are you going to hold yourself accountable to being inclusive of them, and how are you going to assess it? So how will you identify that they've been adequately included in the process? And I noticed that you have an effort to put bilingual interpretation in a written form and online, but how are you going to account for actually engaging those folks and knowing that you have a good representation of that audience in your conversations around this? And please reach out to me. I'm really interested in collaborating on the affordable housing piece.
Thank you, Amber. Stephen, is it Schmidt? Thank you. Thank you.
Notorious bad handwriting. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I thought this was more of a discussion about plans for the future, but it seems like this is a preliminary step. But that being said, I appreciate this open forum. And thus far, everyone I've heard, I would agree with minor exceptions. The young lady in front of me, I do not foresee that this property should be used for housing development. I know there's concern in the community about that, but I don't think this is a public park in all essence. And we would no more build housing on Heldon Putnam Park than we would on this facility. My motto on this whole thing would be, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think the facility serves the public at large. I happen to live in Two Rock, but I own property, rental property here in Petaluma. I pay taxes in Petaluma. My family heritage goes back to Stephen Payran, so I think I have connections to the community. My kids have worked at the fair. They've shown at the fair not only agricultural, but the arts projects and like the welding, the electrical aspects. All these things are invaluable. The first woman that got up spoke about intergenerational contact. What more intergenerational contact can you see than at the county fair? You have grandmas going there with their kids. You have all sorts of things. To switch a little bit, I'm an avid race car fan. I go to the Speedway. The Speedway is a great community asset. There's only three in Northern California still operational. It's a proud asset. I suspect members of this board don't know, but it has produced a lot of national race car drivers. I just came back from Tulsa, Arizona, the Chili Bowl, where people from this community, Pengrove, who raced here and developed their racing skills at this track, were top stars there, and over 300 race car drivers from across the country, including Indianapolis car drivers. So this is a facility that promotes not only the ag, the FFA, that I belonged to as a kid, but 4-H. It's like the perfect convolution of all aspects of our society. Everyone goes there, all races, all creeds. It's just the perfect thing. So why would we change it? I strongly urge you to maintain it basically as we go forward. One woman talked about the toxic aspect. We all can appreciate that. I know for a fact that the racetrack has undertaken steps to preclude any sort of toxic thing. Everyone has to put down tarps, for example, under their cars, etc. These are things that admittedly maybe have to be addressed but they are addressed actually ongoing basis. So please, let's go forward. I don't want to exclude anyone. Thank you.
No. No clapping, sorry, no clapping. Thank you very much. Andrea Chapman.
Excuse me as I pull up my notes. Good morning, Council and Fair Board and City staff. Thank you all who came out today to show your support for whatever you believe in for the fairgrounds. I find it very important that people have a chance to voice their opinion on something so important, something that is the heart of Petaluma. My name is Andrea Chapman, and I'm a mom here in Petaluma. I work here in Petaluma, and I have roots that go pretty deep here in Petaluma. So I feel like, you know, I want to say something about this whole process and where we're headed down this path of, you know, trying to figure out what to do with the fairgrounds. I love our fair. I love our town, and I think it's our fairgrounds is a great place for all to enjoy. It's a place that showcases Petaluma's best. And it's a place that offers so much to our entire community and beyond. As apparent today by the attendance here that there is a great community concern over the future of our fairgrounds and how that may impact us as a community. It is important to all of us that we each have our chance to be heard and help form our visions for the fairgrounds into a viable plan that eventually becomes an exciting reality. Each one of our concerns, ideas, dreams, and priorities for the fairgrounds should be heard and strongly considered throughout the entire planning process. Many here today support our Fair Board, and we all want to be able to show our support by supporting or by participating in the future meetings to come. With that, finding ways to provide group participation via workshop or design charrette, which sounds like we're heading in that direction, which is great, would be, in my opinion, the best and most inclusive for all. I also like the fact that there's surveys that are involved now that we will be including. I think it's important to get everybody's voice out there. Not everybody likes to speak in front of other people, and I think that's one of the key things is that we don't leave people in the dark, and we get the information out there. I mean, this has been in the dark for a long time, and a lot of us didn't know what was happening, so it's great that it's getting out there now. One of the things that I think is important is a time that's set that everybody can attend. I know that we have the videos and that sort of thing, and people can go back and watch those videos, but I think it's really important for people to be present and voice their opinions at these meetings. And I think also if we could have smaller groups that people can participate in, because sometimes if we're in large groups like this, people don't want to say anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Rick Faith.
Good morning. My name is Rick Faith, and I'm the owner of Glad Enterprises Incorporated that does business as Petaluma Speedway. First, I'd like to thank the Ad-Hoc committee members for both the Fairgrounds and the City Council, as well as Allison and Peggy, for your transparency in holding public meetings about the future. And obviously the topic for us is the future of the Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds. I've been the promoter of the racetrack for the last 8 years and own the company that has managed it for the last 37 years. As a business owner, I make my livelihood along with 25 other employees on race day at this facility, and most assuredly, the existing footprint of the facility remain intact. Petaluma Speedway has been in existence since 1961 at the fairgrounds, and as such, it remains and has been the only professional weekly sporting venue in Sonoma County. For the last 25 years, we post an average of 25 events per season and entertain tens of thousands of patrons, hundreds of competitors, each season, and we're supported by 25 local businesses as both sponsors and suppliers. The economic impact that the racetrack has on the local economy is immense. The supporters of the track dine at local restaurants. They purchase tires, fuel, raw materials, and other goods and services from local businesses. We purchase our food and beverage locally. In essence, what we generate stays in this community. Last week, there was an article in the Argus Courier by Catherine Palmer that sent shockwaves through this community. While the article did outline the process for which we're here today, it was, however, filled with ideas of low-income housing, affordable housing, city event center. No article did it the possibility of negotiating a new lease with the fairgrounds in its current footprint. And frankly, and I don't believe I'm alone on this, I find that extraordinary. Affordable housing or low-income housing is a political myth. It's a code word for let's develop and increase our property tax revenue, while in reality, it only satisfies the construction contractors and the banks that own them. With regards to an event center, all I can say is the entire Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds is one giant event center that not only houses the racetrack, but 2 schools, a paintball facility, a doggy daycare facility, Java Hut, Marin Airporter, and over 250 outside events are held there each and every year. The Lagunitas Beer Circus, the Petaluma Music Festival, Rip City Rider events, ethnic events, cook-offs, swap meets. As of last year, we added Hispanic rodeos at the racetrack, and which also culminates with the 5-day fair. Let us not forget that the fairgrounds has also acted as an emergency evacuation center twice in the last 3 years. Thank you.
Patricia Tuttle Brown.
I'm 68 years old. I grew up here. I got many generations, some of them chicken ranchers, blah, blah. But I was always a city kid, totally a city kid, graduated in 1969. I knew nothing about the ranchers, farmers, except they ruled. So what I want to say is I want to reveal my prejudice. And my prejudice is that the Marin Sonoma Fairgrounds is important in the 21st century as a way of supporting agriculture in the 21st century. We've seen with, I guess, Progressive Pastures sold all its cattle because they couldn't get them slaughtered properly. There's problems. Many of the farmers, I don't have a lot of ins in that community, but they're hanging on by their fingernails. And I do not believe that the fairgrounds, that there's no way to, that the fairgrounds cannot become, in the heart of our community, a place where we find a way to support young farmers, people who have no land. We support agriculture. It's not just open space district buying land so that it can become estates. It's so we can actually produce food. And if we're talking about a 21st century problem and sustainability, food that we eat, and I have to say, I don't include intoxicants, is imperative. So that's my prejudice. I have seen grown men cry at the fairgrounds because I attended a couple of blacksmith events where they camp all over the place. I've seen grown men cry because their fairgrounds were modernized. That's really sad. If we pay lip service to enjoying the green hills out there, we need to put our money where our mouth is and find a way to make money doing this. And that would include keeping the fair's part of it. The racetrack, I'm not excluding the racetrack in that, but I don't know about a lot of the other uses. Agriculture and the connection that Marin and Sonoma have always had are very important. My version of the history is that it emerged from Sonoma and County's geographical closeness. There was a retail leakage study done in the 1990s that was never adopted by the council, but it got in everybody's heads that that was a great place to redevelop. That needs to not be in our heads anymore, and we need to start from scratch. As far as charrettes, I find them extremely intimidating because if in small groups of 10, bullies emerge, and then somebody wants to summarize it all, and you're like, okay, so remember that about charrettes. And the last thing I want to say is that, what was that? Well, anyway, that's my view. Thank you.
Casey Coulterman.
Good morning. My name's Casey Golterman. My family's been here since the 20s. We had a chicken ranch. My parents have been involved in this community through their real estate and construction business since the 60s. I've been licensed as a broker and contractor since about 91. So I'm dealing with people coming to this town, and they come here because of the charm, and they ask about the history. And when you speak about community, I think you really have to understand what this community is comprised of now. A lot of the original people that actually made this town what it is have been pushed out due to this new economic redevelopment that's going on around here. So this, like many of the 4-H or FFA kids that spoke here prior to me, this Fairgrounds has been it's helped carve the integrity that I have through the ag programs at Petaluma High School with Bill King and John DeYoung. They really were an inspirational part of my life, and through the Fairgrounds we were able to spend the entire year getting ready for our entries. And since I wasn't good scholastically, I really excelled through those programs. My father actually built Bill King's house, so I had a lot of extra attention, and obviously I was like, I had a lot of pressure on me, but I excelled, and I was able to really flourish through that program. And the Fairgrounds has always been a big part of my life, as well as many of my friends who grew up on ranches. I was able to help them with their animals, and it was just a big sense of community. So I just want to make sure that you take everybody's, mostly the original, the old families. You need to pay attention to the people that actually grew up here, multi-generational people, because the appeal that this town has is being eroded, and this is like the heart and soul of this town. It's the only thing left. We don't want to be one of these drive-by towns like what you see in the valley. There's only a couple towns like this left along the 101 corridor, and we really need to preserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Shalina Moreta.
Hi, everybody. I would just first like to point out that the racetrack has brought on not only national racers, but also international racers. My name is Shalina Moreta. I've grown up around the Fairgrounds watching my dad race cars at the racetrack, showing animals and learning responsibility not only with animals, but with the public. This is where I first did my first speaking engagements, educated people about agriculture, and learned what community was about. These things have all gained steam for me in life and helped create who I am today. They've enabled me to give back to the community and to teach the world about Petaluma. Today I am a professional athlete who competes all around the world, a cover girl on an international campaign, and a coach for females who want to gain confidence and break barriers, as well as the president for our local nonprofit, NorCal Livestock Evacuation, who gets animals out of the fire zones so that people can get themselves out. And I think we did a heck of a job in the last fire. Thanks in large part to the Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds, who run a crew of the most competent volunteers you'll find during emergencies. Not having the fairgrounds as a resource would create a burden to the public instead of being a service to the public. Not having a place to bring animals and people during emergencies makes us rely on private citizens, which opens them up to liability when the fairgrounds is supposed to be where we can turn to in emergencies. Do you know that the Santa Rosa Fairgrounds was set to evacuate? We run a crew of over 100 haulers, and we were the resource who would be doing those evacuations. If we did not have the Petaluma Fairgrounds, Alameda would be the next stop. Do you know what that would mean for our turnarounds? It'd make it nearly impossible for us. Those of us who were raised on a farm don't want to feel like we're being pushed out and silenced. This is a place where we've all called home and contributed to since we were kids. I would hope that you would keep this conversation diverse. and listen to those of us who've helped make Petaluma what it is. It's important as a way of supporting agriculture in today's changing world. How do we not utilize this place to actually step up and do something to support agriculture and our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Tamola?
Good morning, City Council, Fair Board, and those in attendance. My name is Justin Tamola. I am the school director of Live Oak Charter School, which has a 16-year tenure being on the fairgrounds. I'm inspired by what I heard earlier today around the process of moving forward. I look forward to engaging as a stakeholder in collaboration with the fairgrounds in the process. So thank you for making that available to me and the other tenants of the fairgrounds. I did want to send an invitation out for those that aren't familiar with Live Oak. Please use these devices we have. Type in liveoakcharter.org. You will see a brand new website that we unveiled about a month ago. I encourage you to browse through the pictures. It's very user-friendly. It's very mobile-friendly. I also invite the council and members of the community to please come to our school, call, and sign up for a tour. We'd be very happy to show you the home away from the home that our students have for 7 to 10 hours during the day. Students from Petaluma, Sonoma County, and Marin County do come to Live Oak Charter on the fairgrounds for their home away from home 7 to 10 hours a day. We love it. We're a thriving, smart, wonderful community and school. And as the director, I look forward to continuing to engage in the stakeholder process with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fred Tarr?
Members of the committee and the staff here representing the fair and the city of Petaluma, I thank you for your hard work, of which I know you're all looking forward to this, and I appreciate the time you're putting into it. I have no agenda on my mind. I agree with many of the speakers from FFA. I agree with many of the speakers with uses on the property. I also agree with many of the people who are looking toward other uses on the property. The only thing I want to put forward to you is somewhere up front, before you get down the line too far, is that you look into the financial impacts this committee will have involved. One of the big ones is environmental review of any proposed uses coming your way, existing uses that are already on the property, but please come up with some estimates early on as far as the cost, financial impacts on the city and the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Barnacle?
Morning. Nice to be here in the morning, too. I agree with Amber. I grew up in Petaluma. I showed cows at the fair, actually, with Shalina. She threw me in the poop bin. I was in 4-H. I was in FFA. I submitted quilts to the fair. Got last place in the quilting, but did all right in cows. My family's still in the ag scene. My current passion is climate and climate justice and all of that stuff. And I see agriculture and Petaluma's agricultural history as a really, really important part of climate justice and taking climate action. I think this is an important piece of our community fabric, and I want to see the agricultural history celebrated. And I agree with the speaker who said that we should be looking at the future of agriculture and trying to make it an educational thing and connecting people to where their food comes from and all of that. I also think that we need to look at what's been done around the site, and I'm going to just point at the Target Center because I think that's a tragedy. I think it's probably one of the biggest eyesores in this town, and it's right adjacent to something that is a cultural monument for our city, and if we're talking about community, we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I think it'd be great is when we look at this to say what's not going to happen, because there's a lot of people in here who are scared to death that we're going to build more big box stores over top of our fairgrounds. And for me, a little bit of housing might work, and it might make sense to accent the community space, but if what we did to that Target Center is what we do to this fairgrounds, it's a tragedy, and it would be a shame. So please, please, please articulate what it's not going to be up front so that we can get people to not be so defensive about this and can be open to envisioning the future, because all they're hearing right now is they're going to take our fairgrounds, build big box stores, build apartment buildings that are going to be ugly and are going to be high priced and attract people from San Francisco who ride the SMART train, and that's not what we want. We want to celebrate the working class, the agricultural community, and look to the future of making Petaluma and celebrating our history as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Moore?
It has. Good morning, everyone. I guess it's Old Planners Day, so nice to see Fred here as well. Good morning. I'm Mike Moore, a Petaluma resident, and I think from the comments that you've heard this morning that this is one of those opportunities that the city has to really do an amazing planning job. 35 years ago, the city had a similar opportunity in the area that at that time was unincorporated, known as Corona Eagle-Eye, the northeast quadrant of the city between Washington and Corona Road. And the city brought together landowners, developers, school districts, the county, and put together a visionary plan, which is now reaching its completion. But it resulted in the creation of new schools, parks, the relocation of Kenilworth Junior High School, the Sonoma, or the Santa Rosa Junior College campus. And I think there's some parallels to what the opportunities are for the fairgrounds today. This is a generational planning opportunity, and you've heard from other speakers about the things to be concerned about. I recognize all of those and think that that's an important part of this process, but I also want to urge you to think outside the fairgrounds property itself and to look at the planning opportunities that go along with some of the city properties that could be redeveloped and relocated as a result of this process. Kenilworth Park, Kenilworth Recreation Center, the old Elwood Fire Station, City Hall, even the police department and the fire department. I would also encourage you to look at the industrial uses that go all the way to Kenilworth Drive, look at the possibility of relocating those to the area between the river and Lakeville in order to expand the development opportunities and the redevelopment opportunities that are available with the fairgrounds site. Again, this is a generational opportunity. It looks like you're off to a good start in producing a plan that really recognizes that, but I would encourage both the council and the Fair Board to really look at a bold vision for this site. It's probably the last great planning opportunity in the city, and one that will be done right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I can't read it if June Maserey, June or Julie Maserey. Can't read the handwriting. I'm only as good as the handwriting. Sorry. Sorry, Luke.
Yeah, June here. No. Good morning, guys. Just gonna say something real quick. My whole life, you're either on the east side of Petaluma or the west side of Petaluma, and it's always been one of those things. And now I live in what they call Midtown, so I'm a stakeholder. I'm a neighbor of the Fairgrounds. I'm also a small business owner. My grandpa started a small business here in 1960, and I helped run it with my father and my brother, and we're right around the corner of the Fairgrounds as well. And I believe that the Fairgrounds is a very important part of Petaluma. What it represents, its past in ag. I grew up in the FFA. I showed sheep there. My grandma, she's a champion. She wins first place with all of her floral designs there. But it brings people together, I guess is where I'm going. It's the middle of town. It's the heartbeat. It could be the heartbeat of Petaluma. And I think that's really important. I think it would be a shame to stuff a bunch of housing in such an important part of Petaluma. It could be much more than that, and I think it is right now. I'm a realist and know that this town is changing, and I'm sure a part of that area will change, and the Fairgrounds might have to be used a little bit better. But I would advise all of you to really think about it as a multi-use space, something that holds on to our history and brings people together. But please don't stuff a bunch of housing there. Thanks.
Thank you, Luke. Jessica Humphreys.
Good morning. So my name is Jessica Humphreys. Nice work on a difficult one there. I have lived in Petaluma for about 10 years now. My family is a farming family from the Midwest. They raise corn, soybeans, hogs, cattle in Iowa, still going at it. And although I did my young adulthood in Chicago, Petaluma really feels like home because of my agricultural roots, but it has that urban flavor that I so loved living in the city as a young adult. My kids and I enter projects in the fair every summer, and they've been doing it since they were 4. Again, it feels like home. It's time to get your fair projects turned in. Last summer, I won the elusive Best of Show ribbon for a Jell-O mold, which made my thank you. It made my Midwestern relatives very proud, and has upped the ante for my kids in terms of what they submit this year. They are determined. I also have a doctorate in education from Northwestern University in Chicago. I've done research at many institutions on how children learn and best education practices, including collaborations at UC Berkeley here in California. When it came time for my kids to go to school, we moved here when they were infants. We looked around and without hesitation chose Live Oak Charter School. My background in education research, I was just overwhelmed and bowled over by what happens and the magic that happens at that school. My son is currently in 4th grade, my daughter's in 6th, and I cannot wait for them to graduate from 8th grade at the place where they started going to school. Live Oak is just a really magical place where truly the best practices of education in terms of academics get blended with the Waldorf philosophy, which grounds kids in a way that I frankly have never seen before in all the schools and all the cities that I have ever worked in. It gives them a sense of self and confidence in the world, and also prepares them to be like just superstars academically. Not to brag, but my daughter just got her science scores back from the STAR testing last year, and she got a perfect score, which is amazing. I'm a high achiever. I never did that. I do a lot of volunteering at the school. Last year I ran the 3rd grade gardening program. We call our 3rd graders at Live Oak the farmers of the school. The year is spent truly digging into the soil and doing a lot of agricultural and farming activities. They do a project with fibers, and as an example of how we are representative of the community, when it is their turn to be farmers and learn about fibers, one of their classmates brought in his sheep, and we shared them on campus. And then they went through the whole process of learning how to clean the wool, card the wool, dye the wool, spin the wool. It was endless. They're still working with wool from that project, and they do that. That's every 3rd grade. And they started it in 3rd grade, and that wool lives forever. as part of their classroom cycle. So I spent the year literally digging in the soil, doing farming with these kids. And it wasn't my first time digging in the soil. 8 years ago when we started at that school, I helped move, I don't even know how many cubic yards of mulch and soil onto a parking lot to build a garden. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Carr?
It is. My name is Jim Carr. I've been a resident of Petaluma for 46 years, and I had family here. Moved here in '53. So we used to, the first houses on the east side, so we used to run across the fields over to the fairgrounds and really had a vested interest. But I think young Luke mentioned something, and Mike Moore, the idea of this opportunity of planning. But this Petaluma has been it is a very resilient community. And we mentioned the fires, but we forget about the floods. The Petaluma Kitchen came as a result of the fairground. We started at the firehouse there, and then started expanding the marine icicle, that stuff. We have flooding a heck of a lot more than we have fires, and that place has always been in the heartbeat of what takes place as far as emergency services, gathering together and stuff like that. It also, I think it's no incident by the fathers of the community years ago. It's in the center of the community as it built out. And what you mentioned, all the activities that take place, the FAA, the farmers, the racetrack, all that stuff. I worked here also for 16 years as your Parks and Recreation Director, and we had some pretty divisive times politically. That fairgrounds was a place where people could go and they could put aside their differences, and it had a calming effect on what happened in this community. The racetrack and all that stuff also, that people gather together there as a community, and they can just be Petalumans and not have to worry about their political differences and all that kind of stuff. So I really want to applaud both ad hoc committees. I know the fairgrounds in the past, they had looked at mixed use seriously when Brian was there. And I'd like to see those efforts continue. And I just really appreciate the openness of this, because that has not been history in the past. And this is a beautiful community, and I know that they'll get behind anything that you do. One thing I'd like to mention, Barry, if you could be sure that the service clubs are involved. My Petaluma Kiwanis were heavily involved, as well as the Rotaries, and everything we do in those fairgrounds comes out and impacts every one of these nonprofits in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jessica Main?
Good morning. My name is Jessica Moore. I also represent mixed stakeholders this morning. I am a parent of 2 children at Live Oak Charter School, as has been mentioned, the K through 8 public charter that is housed on the fairgrounds. Thank you so much, Allison. I also represent Petaluma Health Center. I'm a family nurse practitioner and have been there for the last 15 years. I just want to point out the beautiful sentiments that are here on the wall and the opportunity that this really provides the city to start realizing the vision that's stated there of sustainability, safety, justice, health, and active living. And I really hope that these are things that we all can come together around on this process. I also want to point out that Petaluma Health Center serves 35,000 patients in southern Sonoma County, Petaluma. And as you're looking for stakeholders to engage and ways to involve people who may not be able to come to community meetings, we have a very diverse population of patients. Spanish speak, 50% of our patients are monolingual Spanish speaking, and they're there every day. And so, we welcome you to come and to talk to stakeholders as part of this process. I understand the need for financial sustainability. We deal with that all the time at the health center, but I'm very hopeful that we can come to some creative solutions that really value the public space, affordable housing, and the age-friendly living that was mentioned, really from our young students to our older community residents. Thank you for allowing us to be involved in this project.
Thank you. Next speaker is Brad Byrne.
Good morning. My name is Brad Byrne. Been in the city for a number of years, and I ask that you guys be transparent and not short-sighted. I've seen too many of these things. Prince Park, I'm sure you're well aware of what went on out there with the city being involved, and The Prince family are probably rolling over in their graves as we speak. McNear, great product or great place for kids, adults to do their thing. One thing leads to another. New homeowners come in. All of a sudden, McNear's shut down. Don't fall in love with the almighty buck. Don't be short-sighted. And the what ifs, what if we do this and make all kinds of money? If we do that, we can make all kinds of money for the city. You can't hardly get across town as it stands. You put housing in there, you put more stores in there, you're going to really have an east side and west side. My kids grew up here, and all you heard was east side, west side. Well, we're one community, and all I ask is that you look at what you've got today, and, I heard someone else say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kind of a Midwest upbringing that I've got. I see a lot of good. The racetrack, the fair. Folks, how many parents go to the fair, feed their kids, and say, let's go downtown and eat and get some real food for us? That Fairgrounds generates dollars that are unseen. I've gone to the races a few times, and yeah, I'll buy a beer or two, and then it's, hey, let's go to Pinky's, let's go to McNear's, let's go downtown and eat. And those are dollars that are unseen that are generated by the Fairgrounds. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Joe Chapman.
This is my daughter, Amelia. Hi. So, this is 4th generation Petaluma. My family has been in this town. Okay, so number one, I'm not a good speaker because I'm emotional. So, my family's been in this town for a long time. They moved my great-grandparents' house to put 101 through. I think that it's important to realize how important this town is and the agriculture in this town. There's a lot of other really great aspects in this town. But how many times do people come to Petaluma to see houses? People are coming to Petaluma to see the rolling hills and the agriculture and the heritage of this area. It's beautiful. People don't move from the city to Petaluma because the houses are pretty, right? People don't realize what it takes to keep our hills green and to support our agriculture that makes the city. To not justify the importance of agriculture is not doing justice to this city. I have so many things to say, and I'm trying not to say a lot, and I'm trying to say it properly, but I think it's really important. I grew up in town. I grew up on the west side, or actually the east side, sorry. I went to the west side to go to Petaluma High to get that agriculture. I went to the fairs to go and get that agriculture. I have to thank Petaluma High and the fair because it got me into Cal Poly to be a bioresource agricultural engineer. I came back to Petaluma. My daughter, my 2 sons who are at school, they're in 4-H, they're active in agriculture and the town. We do so many different things, and I want to continue to have that opportunity for my kids. The Fairgrounds is the heart of it. And to say that the Fairgrounds will be better suited for more houses or a police station that we already have is foolish. I'm sorry. I really think that we need to, I think we need to support the Fairgrounds, a really great event center that more people can use and can be used throughout the year, and be able to keep the importance of agriculture and other things that we have going on in town. It's not just houses, because God forsake, God forbid, I don't go to Petaluma just to go look at houses. I love our rolling hills. So I hope I didn't say too much, but I have to say something. So, and I know I hate public speaking, and I know that I'm doing it for everybody else too.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to close public comment, and I want to bring it back to the subcommittees. Thanks for everyone, both who spoke, and there'll be a lot of opportunity to provide input.
What's next?
Wanted to hear from the subcommittee on any more outreach ideas before I turn it back over to Barry. Any thoughts or comments?
So I'd be happy to lead it
Thanks,
off. So, well, first of all, thank you everybody for attending this session. We had 20 speakers here. I think we all took a lot of notes. What I'd like to harken back to, though, is our discussion yesterday in subcommittee, where I was taking particular interest in how we hear feedback from the community. And Barry outlined some different methods, and I added, an empirical survey as one additional thing. Expressed my concern that Patricia Tuttle-Brown talked about, which is the charrette process. I've been through many of them, and I like parts of it, and I dislike other parts of it. And the part that I dislike is exactly what she talked about, which is kind of the stuffing of the ballot box around certain issues. And there are people on both sides of the issue with respect to charrettes. So we're going to go through that. I also indicated a disinterest in kind of the compilation of numbers, 180, 100, bless you, 180 for something, 37 for others, because it provides an imbalance. And so what I'm really looking for here is multiple digital and other platforms for the community to express their opinion. And so I reiterate that today because some of our notes weren't up on the screen here today about the additional things that I think the committee would benefit from.
Thank you. Councilmember Healy and then Councilmember King.
So I would agree with Brian's comments. The turnout was great. The commentary, the comments from the public were informed, and there was a broad range of issues and interests in the property. One thing I wanted to emphasize, and this goes back to what the city manager was saying at the beginning, one of my frustrations in dealing with this process over recent years is that we've had some fairly in-depth consultant reports prepared, and the city council would review them in closed session, and then the fair board would review them in closed session, and the only people who didn't get to see them were you all. And we're now putting those documents up on the website. I would encourage you to look at them. They're not necessarily the current thinking. They were ideas at the time, but I think this emphasizes our commitment now to transparency and having an open process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember King.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the probably over 100 people who came out today on a work day to speak and listen and participate. A couple of things I would say that in addition to the 20 or so speakers we had today, there are going to be many ways that you can communicate your thoughts and ideas to the consultant and to the city. Not everybody can be here on a work day from 9 to 12. I know some people spoke about it's good to have it during the day. I think they were at the meeting on Monday night that went till well into Tuesday morning, and I can certainly appreciate that. But I also work, and I know other people do, and people have their lives. So I think it's important to communicate to everybody out there, no decisions are being made today. And I don't see this process moving rapidly. I would like to see as broad a community participation and input as we can get. Several speakers spoke about it being a generational opportunity, and I agree with that. It is 55 acres of land owned by a municipality in the center of its city. And I think it's vital that we get as broad based input as we can get for some ideas. In terms of outreach, there were some ideas articulated. If you have ideas on how to reach parts of the community that may not be getting addressed here, communicate those. The idea here is to reach as many people who are willing to be reached. Public participation in local city government is not something everybody wants to do, but they have to be made aware of it, and if you have ideas, communicate those. We, and when I say we collectively, the city staff, the city council members, the Fair Board members, we have an idea of who is out there. There are some people we hear from a lot, and there are some people who have views that we barely do hear from. So it's important for you to communicate so that we can communicate out to them and get information. One of the speakers asked what is it not going to be at the start, and by and large I don't know that that's the process we're going to take. I think the idea is to find out what the community wants. From that, and I guess it depends on what you mean from the start. This is the beginning, and the start is going to be for a while. But I think that the idea of having an open-ended process to hear information is not to preclude anything. Although the specific item that was mentioned, which was big box stores, seems unlikely. I didn't hear anybody speaking out for that. I don't hear much support for that in the community. And people who know where retail is going and gone, I would say if you were a betting person, that's a fair thing that is not going to be coming forward. But again, you want to have an open mind, so we'll do that. But keep that in mind. And then lastly, the very first speaker said something, and I'm paraphrasing, but not everybody is not entirely satisfied with the process. I kind of expect that to be the case here. I just hope that we're more satisfied than not in what the result is. So those are my conclusions. I don't know where we're going to go with these subcommittees, but this is without a doubt a decision that has to be made from the broader community and input. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you, Councilmember King. Director Parks.
In addition to our appreciation for the attendance and the passion, please don't lose that for 1 second over this process. Please stay informed. There's a lot of folks that we've heard from today who have individual 1 or 2 touches with the property. Spend a few minutes to learn about all the other things that the property does, all the other ways it impacts the community, and how you can educate yourself on of what may occur in the future with certain decisions. So reach out beyond your comfort zone, learn a little bit more about it, the businesses, the people, the education, connection with the heritage in the community, the history behind the property. Just learn a little bit more about it, not just your individual connection. That would be my challenge to you, that I think you'd be surprised.
Thank you. Councilmember McDonnell and then Director Grassi.
In brief, batting towards the lower half of the lineup here, most good things have been said, and I appreciate what the public has given for input and just the showing up. Being part of the game, is part of that is showing up and getting your voices heard. At this point, I'm very excited about this. This is years in the making, and as Councilman King or Healy mentioned, too much has been kept not transparent. So the idea that this process will be transparent, that's huge for me. And the vacuum of information that hits the public has caused mistrust. And what we're doing now, collaboratively, with the teamwork between the 2 organizations, I think is very, very positive. I'm at a huge point of optimism on this project, but the realist says there's huge challenge ahead. So it's the path getting there that is going to tell how the outcome works. And stay engaged. Thank you.
Yeah, just briefly, I want to thank everyone for being here. It's an incredible turnout. But what I would do, I look at the people that show up today, and I see you guys as leaders within this community. It's not just the people sitting up here making decisions. So we want this to be as transparent as possible, and it's extremely important to me. And the best way to do that is to be able to hear from everybody. And while we're going to do everything we can to reach out to the community, you guys have the ability to reach out to people that we don't know or to other groups and try to bring them into us. I think that's going to be something that's really important so that people do get heard that might not otherwise be heard. And so if you guys can reach out to your friends to educate them about what we're doing and get their comments, bring them to us, I think that would be really important just to make sure that we get a chance to hear from everybody. The woman who spoke first, about the from the senior advisory committee, thought that was really important because I don't recall seeing that specific group on our focus list for the smaller group meetings we want to have, and I think that's something that we can add. So other groups, I know we mentioned this before the meeting, out to us, somebody, whether it's at the city council or at the fair board, so that we can get those important groups added on. Thank you guys, everyone.
Thank you, Director Grassi. And with that, what we're going to do, next steps are we're going to be compiling an outreach plan, a draft outreach plan that each subcommittee can take to their respective boards and council for further discussion and direction. Barry, do you have final thoughts?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. We look forward to your continued participation in the process, and look for information on both websites.
Sign up on our website.
Yeah,
sign up on the website for notifications, and we will be sending out updates as we get them. So thank you very much, and have a great weekend.
We look forward to it. It's an exciting process.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.